Greetings, friends. Louise Eddington, Cosmic Owl with Cosmic Owl Astrology. I promised you a solstice video as well as my usual new moon videos. So I'm recording this on June the 20th, and the actual solstice itself, or the moment that the sun moves into Cancer, is at 5:13 a.m. in Washington DC Eastern Time, and so that will be 3:13 a.m. for Mountain Time, 2:13 a.m. Pacific, and 10:13 a.m. in the UK. Everybody else will have to do their own time zones. There's too many time zones for me to look at them all. And the solstice is the moment that the sun moves to zero Cancer. Now, most of what I'm going to say applies to the northern hemisphere, but I will talk about the southern hemisphere too, because the sun moves to zero Cancer, whether it's in the north or the south. And of course, it's midwinter for the southern hemisphere and midsummer for the northern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere, we're celebrating the sun, we're celebrating the longest day, but in the southern hemisphere, you are celebrating the start of the longer days beginning to return, and we're at the point of release where the days are going to start getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And it's the wheel of the year. The zero cardinal points, the world axis are when the seasons begin and the light begins to shift. We have the two solstices, the December solstice, when the sun goes to zero Capricorn, and the June solstice when the sun goes to zero Cancer. And I have a zero Cancer baby, so I was actually giving birth on the summer solstice in the year 2000, which was quite magical, to be quite honest. And of course, then we also have the equinoxes, the half days between when the sun moves into zero Libra and zero Aries. So zero Aries being the spring in the northern hemisphere, the fall in the southern hemisphere, or autumn, and zero Libra being the autumn or fall in the northern hemisphere, and vice versa in the southern hemisphere. Hope that makes sense. All right, so I just pulled some cards for this particular solstice. This is kind of give you a little astrological overview for the chart for the solstice, for the moment that the sun moves into Cancer. I'm going to look at it at Washington, DC, just to kind of get a feel for what might be coming for the year ahead, particularly for the US, but we're going to look at the general astrology as well. But first I pulled some cards. So these are for all of us. And the first card I pulled is the Priestess. And this is inner wisdom, ancient knowledge, spirituality, subconscious, and the divine yin or divine feminine. So, you know, this is what we're all being called to at the moment. And the astrology does reflect that, as you will see, both individually and collectively in the US. But I want you to really kind of focus on this, and this is kind of what you're aiming to become. We keep talking about the rise of the divine feminine. Now, for me, the rise of the divine feminine doesn't mean necessarily just women particularly. It's more that energy of the moon, of receptivity, of emotional intelligence, and bringing that into wholeness with the yang energy. That's part of a symposium I've been taking part of about how we bring all these opposites together. I'm actually on a panel tomorrow for it. So there you go. So what could hold you back from this in this next season, through this next 3-month period? Well, then I pulled the Six of Swords, which is the Mercury and Aquarius card, which is the science card, which kind of made me chuckle a little bit with questioning, shall we say, of science these days, and so on and so forth. Not saying that anybody should not question things, but it kind of made me chuckle anyway. I'm sure most of you get the idea what I'm talking about. And this, it relates to Mercury and Aquarius, but when it's reversed, this is really about saying we're being stuck in the past and not letting go. Aquarius is a very futuristic sign, and we are moving into the age of Aquarius at some point. So this is kind of suggesting to me that our old, stuck, rigid thinking is really holding us back, like thinking it's always been this way, so it's always got to be that way, that kind of thing, even though everything has always changes are constant and always has been. So just think about where your own personal rigid thinking has perhaps been holding yourself back, or stuck in old ideas, not letting go of old ideas. And that also kind of makes me laugh, because I got the Hanged Man as the final card. And that's about letting go, perception, perspective, waiting, enlightenment, and trust. Okay. But I did pull this reversed. So this is saying that this is the possibility too, that we may be stuck in victimhood, procrastination, stagnation, and disconnection from source. So that brings me back to the High Priestess, with the answer, as it always seems to be, is within, to go within and start trusting your inner knowing, and to start having faith and trusting process, and trusting the cycle of change, and trusting that you know what you need to do. So, all right, so let's look at the astrology a little bit. But before I dive into the astrology, I do actually want to, oh goodness, where's it gone? There it is. I actually do want to give a plug for my current podcast sponsor, for one of my current podcast sponsors. This is Susteau, Susteau, Susteau Hair Care. This is just genius to my mind. Your hair will thank you, and our planet will thank you too if you switch to Susteau. This is moon dust hair wash, and this is just, why is this genius? It's powdered shampoo. All right, it comes in a very, you can see how big this is. This is equivalent of 8-ounce liquid shampoo bottles. It's a powder to liquid formula. So you just wet your hands and you sprinkle it over your hand, spread it out, not all in one blob, foam it up and wash your hair. And you know, it just takes less water, because most shampoos are water, but less packaging. This packaging is also recyclable, and just, it's just, I can't believe nobody thought of this before. Of course, there's no trouble with Susteau with going through TSA, because there's no liquids. So you don't have to do the 3-ounce thing, or check your bags, or buy those little extra containers to put your shampoo in. I'm just like, why did nobody ever think of this before? And even if you're not traveling, it's just the less packaging, it's more eco-friendly. It makes your hair feel lovely as well. So I also tried this before as well. And they also do some other cute little bits too that could help your hair care. And this is in sustainable materials too, recycled. This is a little clip they sent me, but they do some other things. So go to susteau.com, susteau.com, and use code COSMIC for 15% off. If you use my code, you'll get the 15% off without having to kind of sign up for their emails. But you will also support this podcast, because you know, I'm going to get a little bit of money for every Susteau purchase. So There you go. Susto Moon Dust Hair Wash. Good for the planet, good for your hair. Saying Cisco and the closed captioning, but it's Susto. Susto. It's not getting that one. Anyway, let's move on with the astrology, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel while you're here. It gives me a thumbs up, and hit the little bell so you get a little alert when I upload new videos. So here's the solstice chart. This is set for DC. So whilst I'm not really a predictive astrologer, I'm going to go by my feelings for this chart, for DC, for the US, for the next 3 months. Now, the first thing that jumps out at me is that the sun is in the first house. Is the US kind of looking at its identity and kind of rebirthing its identity over the next period? I kind of think it is with what's going on. Now, the other thing that jumps out at me is that it's 21 degrees Gemini ascendant, and the ascendant is, the communication, or the looking at both sides, or the coming together of community. And will there be a coming together? Is there some meeting in the middle, some diplomacy, some communication that can bring people back to the middle here in the USA over the next 3 months, or at least begin to? The other major thing that jumps out at me is, first of all, the majority of the planets are on this hemisphere of the chart, which is very much about assertion and going our own way. So is it asserting our own identity again? Perhaps so. There's a lot going on behind the scenes here with all this 12th house energy. And this is also the house associated with Pisces and with Neptune, and with the collective unconscious feeling into that. Now, it's in traditional astrology, it's called the house of hidden enemies. But with all of this energy going on in the 12th house, for my mind, it feels like there is an awful lot going on about the scenes, and an awful lot is going to be revealed. I love that the North Node, the Taurus North Node, which is kind of our karmic potential, where we're being pulled towards, is in Taurus in that 12th house. And with, no matter what you think of him as the president, with those words, returning the soul of the country, that feels very much about moving towards more sustainability, returning to more serving the collective, we can hope. I'm a bit of an idealist, so who knows? We do have Mars, Chiron and Eris in here, shaking things up a little bit in groups and organizations, and perhaps bringing some healing. This is I don't know, that's a bit both ways to my mind. I like that Chiron's there, and some groups and organizations certainly need shaking up with that's Eris in there. Mars in Aries indicates there could be a little bit of butting of heads between groups and tribes and organizations, if you like. Not sure what I think about that. The other area that's huge is the 10th house, and that's the public reputation space. Now, on the midheaven is Aquarius, and Uranus is in the 12th house. I think there's going to be some revolutionary changes and breakups. I'm hoping they won't be violent. Mars in this 11th house, which is kind of associated with Uranus and Aquarius too, might indicate some friction, but does that surprise anybody? But one thing I do like about this area is we have Vesta, Nessus, which is Centaur, saying the buck stops here, and Neptune, all in Pisces in the moon, returning us to that more connected, collective, unconscious kind of energy, but that is intercepted. The moon is in Aries, conjunct Jupiter, so a little bit more kind of assertion, I think. It could be as much as asserting their dominance again. Saturn retrograde in the 9th house. Now that's interesting. Saturn in Aquarius are we kind of losing or mastering rather some of the belief that we were the leaders of the free world and all that kind of thing? Saturn is going back over that, finding some truths, mastering some truths, and revisiting something, and clamping some hands down actually on a few things. Pluto is over here in the 8th, transforming our most intimate relations as a country. Ceres is over here saying we have to nurture ourselves and look after our own first of all. It's how we're kind of nurture and how we like to be nurtured, and this is more about our self-esteem and self-worth as a nation. So, you know, there's just a few of my guesses. You know, I'm not really a predictive astrologer, but it kind of feels like, you know, the public space is a big focus this next 3 months for the US in general. And the polarities in Gemini of people kind of, you know, seeing things from both sides, but is there room to kind of bring it together as we reassert our identity? Let's hope. So in general, I am just going to edit this and take it to a 0 Aries chart. So we're not looking at the angles at all. Okay, just looking at the chart itself for all of us. You know, there's a huge emphasis on the first signs of the zodiac. I think collectively at a personal level, if you know what I mean, or each of us personally, we've been going through the past couple of years this extreme time of transformation and alchemy, and we are rediscovering and being reborn out identity-wise. This year, this next 3 months for each of us, the energy, we have the moon, Jupiter, Chiron, Mars, and Eris, all in Aries, the sign of I am. This is really about, you know, emotionally deciding who we are, expansion of who we are. Chiron, healing that aggressive side. I know I've felt that myself. I've moved much more towards my Libra North Node with all this Aries energy, and I look forward to more of that, because we're definitely kind of moving into, you know, or away from this me first energy. The downside of that, of course, is that some will just go, no, me first. I come first. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But then the crux of all this Taurus energy. So for the next 3 months, we've got Uranus in Taurus. He's been there for a while. The North Node in Taurus, conjunct Pallas Athena. But we also have Venus in the sign of her own sign, Taurus, setting the scene for the next quarter of the year, with Sedna also in Taurus, sustainability, values, strong roots. We really are getting down to roots and basic, it feels like. Okay, with the sun in Cancer, of course, being about how, you know, our family identity as a family, and Ceres in Cancer being that. I've seen this kind of building for a while, but, you know, this emphasis on this quadrant of the chart, we've got some letting go here of our attachment to organizations, the public, rules, and all that kind of thing. Now we're more focused on bringing it down to who am I and who am I in relation to this material world and my values, and who am I in a community, okay, which is very Gemini, and who am I in my family. So, you know, this is, yes, the sun's always at 0 Cancer on the solstice, but we do not always have this much in here. And we're on a balsamic moon now. They're just after the last quarter, right on the solstice. So we are letting go of some old ways and old attachments. And that brings me kind of back to that card of saying, if we hang on to rigid old ideas and thoughts, that's going to be our downfall. So I'm just, I'm going to read you a couple of symbols, I think, for all of this. But I do have one other sponsor. I'm very kind of lucky at the moment to have sponsors. And this is Fume. I used to smoke years ago. I stopped smoking in 2005. And it's the best thing I ever done. Such freedom from all that money, freedom from the smell of tobacco all the time, freedom from that habit. Okay. And notice I don't say given up, because I don't think I gave up anything, because it was actually a weight around my neck or my foot. Well, anyway, one of the hardest things about giving up or about stopping the weed and smoking was the habit, putting things in your mouth, that sucking thing, you know, when you've got something to think about, going and go. Anyway, along comes Fume. There's various other things, but I like this one because, again, it's sustainable. It's wood. So, you know, when you're done with it, this will eventually decompose. It's not adding more plastics into the world. It has these lovely flavored cores that they're called cores that you can put in. There's various favorite flavors. They're all natural. There's no tobacco in it at all. And so this is Fume, F-U-M, with an umlaut over the U, fume.com. And again, my code is cosmic for 10% off. And I can guarantee, if you take a look at this, I let a friend try it, and I did actually disinfect afterwards, and they've actually gone and bought their own, because this is a real habit thing. So whether you'd like to stop smoking, or if you have stopped smoking but still struggle with replacing the habit, give Fume a try. It's really good, and it's about creating positive habits. So the actual website is www.breathefume.com. So that's breathefum.com. And again, it's chemical free, it's sustainable, all the packaging's recyclable too, everything's very ethical. Because when I was approached to see if I wanted to have some sponsors on my show, I said I only wanted kind of green and ethical sponsorships. Okay, so right, on to a little bit of so the 0 Cancer Chandra symbol. I posted it in my post today, but it's actually, we go to Cancer 1, is a potter at work, carving out a sacred place for what you care about to flourish. Remember I said we were our values, giving your all to a task or project, a way of life or shared stream, socio-culturally gifted, selecting out what you feel pulled to cultivate and foster, and eliminating all other factors. You feel nurturing, sustaining, giving, but unwilling and unable to recognize and come to terms with shadows and difficulties. So intent upon creating a perfect world or vessel that you miss whatever you do not want to see. And this is a precarious edge to walk. Now, I'm going to suggest that that's a bit of a caution for not getting so focused on perfection and on done being better than perfect. And it's a big caution to myself for what I want to create for this quarter. So there you go. The Sabian symbol for the first degree of Cancer is on a ship. The sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. A radical change of allegiance, exteriorized in a symbolic act, a point of no return. And I find that interesting with the zero Cancer being in the first house of identity in the US chart. So I'm going to kind of leave you with that. The fundamental word is reorientation. It's definitely going to be an interesting quarter with this very concentrated solstice chart, with everything kind of being squashed on one side of the chart. Just let me share again, if you're on video, if you're on audio, please know it's most of the energy is in the Eastern Hemisphere, which is more about self-assertion and identity out in the world, less concerned with others, which could be a good thing for the US, right? Less concerned with what other countries are doing and more concerned with their own identity. Could be a very good thing. It's extremely concentrated, to be quite honest, in even, oh, let me change the house chart back again. Sorry. Okay. But I do find it interesting that Saturn and Pluto are over here in the relationship houses, changing our relationships and changing all our most intimate relationships. So we'll see where this is going, right? I plan on doing these at every solstice. And by the way, I think this is for the next 6 months, really. We do have the equinox, but we have 6 months between the solstices. So it's a guide to where we're going, that's for sure. So anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy these extra videos I'm doing. I love to have your comments, love to have your thumbs up, and always love to have your subscriptions. Much later.